So imagine you're walking into a party, right? You've been invited to this party and you're really looking forward to it. You're expecting a friend to be there who you actually haven't seen in so long. And let's say you arrive at the party and you're looking around and they're not there yet. But as you look across to the door, you see them enter the room. You're so excited to see them because it's been so long. And as they walk in, you're there about to greet them, and there's so many people around, but they walk right past you without even saying hello. Not a word, not acknowledgement. How do you feel in this situation? Probably the answer to this that you're going to give is based on different ways that you're looking at the situation. So for example, if you see that this person has passed and you think, gosh, you know, like, how rude. Like, who does this person think they are? I thought we were friends. You know, you might feel frustrated and angry, and that might lead you to confront them or just avoid them altogether. Maybe you could have another way of looking at the situation to think, oh, maybe they didn't actually see me. You know, in which case you might feel quite neutral and maybe just go and find them and say hi. On the other hand, you might have the thought, oh, did I do something wrong? Like, did I offend them with that thing I sent them last week? Or, you know, you might start to question your behavior in the past towards them and start to feel quite anxious, quite worried. Alternatively, even if you started to think, this is really out of character for this person, like, I mean, maybe something bad has happened to them. Maybe they're upset about something. Maybe they've had a fight with their partner or something like that, and you know, and you might feel empathy and care and go and check on them. Same situation, so many different outcomes for behavior. And the thing that intermediates it really is the perspective that we take, the thought that our mind has on that particular situation. And today, that's the part that I want to talk about a little bit, is thoughts. See, thoughts are really interesting because on the one hand, thoughts can be something that we just experience. Thoughts are like an experience that we have. So, you know, for example, if I get you to just even close your eyes for a second now, and just take a moment as you close your eyes, just to not bring anything on purpose to mind, but just to almost imagine blank space. And as you imagine that, just notice what things pop up in your mind. You might have certain images or plans, people. Just notice what pops up, even though you're not purposefully trying to actually think of a thought. So you see, thoughts can be something that we experience, and maybe even if you didn't get a feel for that in that little brief exercise, you can probably relate to how sometimes you can be driving or walking or cooking or cleaning and your mind just finds things that it attracts to. It starts to think about and things pop in, sometimes helpful thoughts, sometimes unhelpful thoughts, sometimes logical thoughts, sometimes silly thoughts, sometimes thoughts that you question, how on earth did I even come to that thought? You know, thoughts can be quite strange experiences that we have without choosing to have them. But also, if I get you for a second to close your eyes, and I want you to bring to mind the picture of an elephant. Just picture an elephant there in its full size. Picture it walking down the street, stepping on rocks, breaking branches. Paint the elephant pink in your mind and picture the pink elephant walking down the street. Notice how you can do that. How thoughts can be an experience that we have, but thoughts can also be a behavior that we choose. So one of the most common struggles that we have is that we become led by our thoughts and don't lead our thoughts enough. In other words, saying that whatever our mind decides to tell us dictates what we do. So for example, we get up in the morning and our mind says, I just can't be bothered doing much today. I'm not really a morning person anyway. You know, mind says something like that. And so you don't get up, or you don't do much in the morning. You don't exercise, you don't do the thing you want to do. Or maybe you're going to do something. Maybe you're actively about to go to a social gathering, or maybe go and exercise, or go to a job interview. Your mind starts to experience doubts. Maybe people will judge you badly, or maybe it's too hard, you can't do it. What's the point? And so you hear those thoughts as if they were truth, and in a sense your behavior shifts to accommodate those thoughts. So in this first video for the year, I just want to start addressing this it's a very hidden, you know, because we can't see thoughts obviously, very hidden, often kind of very subtle, yet one of the most powerful influences of behavior being our thoughts. This is the part that I want to talk about, and I'm going to start today by introducing the idea of thinking on purpose, choosing thoughts. If we kind of use the metaphor for thoughts like seeing, you know, in fact, this is not new for you. You know, if you've heard someone say, you know, well, the way I see things is, what they're about to share with you is not literally I see things that are red, that are blue, that are purple, and that are shaped like, they're not talking about their literal sight. What are they talking about? When they say the way I see things is, they're really implying that they're about to share with you their perspective, their thoughts on something. So sight has often been a word that we use as a metaphor for what we think. And it's really interesting because when you think of sight, it's one of the only senses, I would say, that actually is both an experience that we naturally absorb and something that we can choose. Let me explain. So for example, if there's things happening in front of you, just imagine right now a parade started in front of you, of all sorts of different colors and people and things. You would naturally see that. You're going to take in what is naturally there. So sight can be an experience that we have. But the interesting thing about the eyes, unlike the ears and the nose and even taste or touch, is that we can actually direct our eyes. We can choose what we see. It doesn't mean we don't take in whatever's there, but it means that we can actually focus our eyes on what we want to be focused on. Sight is an experience, but it's also a behavior that we can control. So in the same way, I would say thoughts have that similar, it's very interesting that we use it as a metaphor because thoughts have that similar effect. In that on the one hand, we can experience thoughts. They can just pop up. Whatever seems to be on the mind's agenda, on the radio's kind of playlist, comes into the mind. But equally, we can also commit to particular perspectives. We can commit to particular thoughts. This is one I want to call having a resolve. Having a resolve means choosing a particular perspective, adopting a particular perspective on a matter that you choose based on two principles. One, a perspective that is workable. In other words, that is going to be helpful to you in the life that you want to live. Two, a perspective that actually is in harmony with your values. But let's break this down. Number one, thoughts have a powerful influence over what we do. Like that example we started with the friend coming to the party, right? You see them, they don't see you. The way you interpret that really influences how you feel and then how you act. Point two is that thoughts can happen quite automatically. Sometimes we don't actually choose what we think. It's just kind of like a radio playing in the background, deciding what's coming up, and probably based on a lot of our histories and learnings and beliefs and things like that, which we'll get into at another point. Three is that we can also choose thoughts. Thoughts can be a behavior. They're not only an experience, they can also be something that we choose. And point four is that one of the core elements of suffering, regardless of whether we go into the different mental health diagnoses, one of the core elements of, I would say almost all of them, is that the contents of the mind, in other words, the things the mind says, act as a dictator to the individual. So when the mind says, people are going to judge you, don't go there, what if they think this, what if they think that, you could see that happening in someone who's experiencing social anxiety and then therefore needs to obviously escape or get away from or avoid situations like that. Similarly, in someone who's going through maybe panic attacks and things like that, there may be thoughts like, oh no, what if I have another attack? Oh no, I think my breathing's going faster, is that my heart rate? What if I'm having, these thoughts then lead the person to need to check on themselves, to scan their body, to do things. In other words, you're seeing that the thoughts that we have direct the behaviors that we do, and in there lies, as I said, one of the foundations of suffering across many different diagnoses. So what we're starting to talk about today with these a couple points as the background is that we are often not practicing thinking as a behavior enough. In other words, we take what our mind says and we act on it. But what I want to introduce is this idea of having a resolve, committing to a particular perspective that is workable and value-based. So I want to, maybe to introduce this, I want to kind of use an example. Let's imagine that, now let's go back to this friend idea. And you have a friend who has been in and out of your life. They've been there sometimes, very helpful, very connected. And other times they just disappear. They're not really there at all. You try and contact them, they're either, not picking up or they're not getting back to you very much. And you feel uncertain about how to progress with this relationship. Some days you think, look, we go back so far and I really want our friendship to work. And so you feel motivated to connect and reconnect. And other days, especially when they're not getting back to you, you think, I'm so sick of this. Aren't I worth more than this? Like, I deserve better friendships than this. And so your behavior is pushed and pulled just like a sailboat out at the sea based on whatever weather is showing up. Having a resolve means choosing a commitment that you are going to adopt, a perspective that you choose to adopt about this friendship and how you're going to act. You can see that having a resolve really depends on knowing what you value, and knowing how you want to act in this particular situation. In other words, your values and workability, the two principles we're saying. In this situation, if you are aware that your values are more around compassion, forgiveness, kindness, perseverance and loyalty, things like this, you may come to a resolve that while it's difficult sometimes in this friendship, it is more important to me to stay connected and to forgive than to preserve myself and to remove and to cut out the friendship. Equally, you may have other values, more around self-respect, self-belief, advocacy, honesty, something along the lines of just advocating for yourself and your needs in a relationship, which is absolutely fine. And if that is your value, then you may choose a different course of action. But either way, we pick a resolve. Importantly, having a resolve doesn't mean that we can't change that. It doesn't mean that now that we've selected, this particular approach to looking at a situation, it doesn't mean that we now can't change that. But it means that we have taken time to consider the situation, to evaluate what we actually value about this situation and who we want to be, and to therefore adopt a perspective and therefore an organization of behavior around how we're going to act in this situation. Now that sounds like a lot of work, right? You're probably thinking, gosh, this sounds like too much work given how many situations there are. And it absolutely is intentional work. I don't do it enough, but I'm saying the opposite is no more time preserving. When you think about how many times you spend in worrying, ruminating, dwelling, contemplating, justifying, evaluating, and so on, that you see that time is probably just as much, if not more, and nothing comes of that because it ends up going in circles. Whereas here, at least you're deciding on a particular perspective that's as true and good as you can evaluate based on your values, with being open to a new perspective should things change. I'll leave it there for today, and as we keep talking through the coming weeks, we're going to be talking about actual practical strategies you can use to deal with those ongoing thoughts that continue even after you've found a resolve, a way to look at things. But just for today, I'd like you to just see if you can even think of a difficult situation in your life where you often struggle with your own thoughts, and to kind of just first of all identify the values, the person you want to be, the qualities you want to have in this particular situation, and see if you can actually write down for yourself a resolve, a chosen perspective that you want to have about how you're going to see this situation and how you'll act in it. And in the weeks to come, we'll talk more about things like dealing with doubt and dealing with this mind that continues to pester us even after we've chosen a resolve. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks for tuning in to the Harvest Clinic's message for the week, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks. Take care. Have a great week.